Right. Good evening, Ghana. Good evening, Africa. Good evening to the world. My name is Olali Delechu, and once again, I welcome you to our 30 Days Health Restore Challenge. Coming to you live from the studios of Bien Manger, Accra, Ghana, is Legon. And just as you've seen all the advertisements flying around, it's been an amazing session already. We've had so much fun. Today is day 3 into our 30 days health challenge. And we've been having so much fun. We've been trying all the new recipes, coming from the kitchen. Mama Gina, wherever you are, good evening to you. Good evening to Mr. Tony Bello, our Grandmaster dealer. Good evening, Barrister Francis. Good evening, Senorita Distributor, now a dealer. Good evening to the Bien Manger family, and good evening to everyone in the Salad Master fraternity. This show is proudly brought to you by Salad Master Worldwide, and it's coming to you from the Bien Manger dealership. Just like I said before, or like you have seen in the flyers all around, we'll be having an in-depth holistic health digest today, and we are being joined once again by our very own Dr. Torbi, all the way from Brekum. But before we bring on Dr. Torbi to go into the discussion, we go for a quick commercial break, and right after that break, we go into action. All right, welcome back from that quick break. My name again is Olali Delechu, and you're watching us live from Bien Manger, Ghana. The show is proudly brought to you by Salad Master Worldwide. And like I said before, today we are having a holistic conversation on some lifestyle disease that is known to most of us. Most of us have heard about it. Probably we've even suffered or probably have had family members deal with this lifestyle disease. And today, I'm glad that we've been joined again by Dr. Torbi, who is a very young, fast-rising doctor in the medical space in Ghana, very bright and sharp gentleman. And today he's going to help us to understand from the medical point of view what really hypertension is. Good evening, Dr. Torbi.
Good evening, Olali.
See you. Great to see you. How are you doing today, and how was the day?
I'm fantastic. I'm doing very well today. The day has been quite busy, but it's cool. How are you too?
I'm absolutely great. You can see I'm taking on the challenge. I'm participating. I'm taking the exercises, and I'm following the meal routine so very well. And so you can see today I'm brighter than I was before.
Fantastic.
Great. So yes, like I announced before, now today we'll be doing a bit of more of hypertension discussions. And just quickly, because of time, I know you are very busy and you would want to go back to the ward and attend to patients. When we talk about high blood pressure, what really is high blood pressure?
Okay. So the basis for saying somebody's blood pressure is high depends on a recording of the person's high blood pressure. We use what we call the sphygmomanometer. When you go to the hospital, that machine that you see that will tie around your arms, and then somebody will put something in their ears and put another thing on your hands to just try to listen to your heartbeat and check the level at which the first heartbeat is heard and then the last one is heard. So these values are so when we are talking about high blood pressure, we are talking about recording a blood pressure level of above 140 over 90. on at least two separate occasions. So the definition for blood pressure is based on the values that we record. Now, the other thing too is that we have a number of medical societies who issue guidelines for us to use to determine if somebody's blood pressure is high or not. There are slight variations in the ranges or the values they use, but in our part of the world, we stick to what we call the Joint National Committee for Prevention, Detection, and then Treatment of Hypertension. Their seventh meeting, which was held in 2003, they agreed on certain values for us to use to define what hypertension is. From that meeting, the values that were agreed upon were that if somebody's blood pressure is less than 120 over 80 millimeters of mercury, they will describe that as normal. Anything above that is problematic, or we'll describe that as hypertension. Now, even if somebody has hypertension, there are stages of hypertension. For example, we'll have what we call a pre-hypertension, the guidelines we are using now, and then we have stage one hypertension, and then stage two hypertension with different values. So,
Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
the
So
main thing
so
is that if it is
before
less than,
before you go into all the medical explanations of the different levels and all of that,
uh-huh.
now you mentioned that if it's above 140, that means you are at risk. That means there is the potential of you getting or being diagnosed of high blood pressure. So, what would be the normal blood level, which probably you would say I'm safe?
Okay, so per the Joint National Committee guidelines, the normal blood pressure is below or equal to 120 over 80.
Okay,
Now, the blood pressure has two components. We have what we call the systolic and then the diastolic. So the systolic value is what we mentioned first, which is the 120. And then the diastolic is what we mentioned second, which is the 80. So if it is 120 over 90 or below, this is normal. Anything above this is hypertension.
right.
Now, so if 121 is above 120, 200 is above 120. So then the staging or the severity comes in where we classify which level is stage one, which level is stage two, or which level is pre-hypertension.
Okay.
But if
So,
it is below or equal to
yes, please go
120
ahead.
over 80, that's normal.
Okay. So, please go ahead from where you stopped. Yeah.
Okay, so there is a category that we call pre-hypertension, which is between 120 to 139 over 80 to 89. That is pre-hypertension. Now, anything above this is either a stage one hypertension or a stage two hypertension. Now, if you say stage one hypertension, we are talking about values from 140 to 159 over 90 to 99. That is stage one hypertension. Now, if it is stage two hypertension, then we are looking at values above 160 over 100. Okay. So, I mean, these values can be a lot for a non-medical person to digest. So we'll just stick to if your blood pressure is above 120 over 80, then you should be concerned.
You should have a
That
worry.
is,
Okay.
yeah, you should be
So,
concerned.
while you were still delivering on that note, someone sent a question in that should I be worried if my blood pressure is 150 over 100?
Yes, please. So the categories I've mentioned now, somebody whose blood pressure is 150 over 100 is at a stage called stage one hypertension.
Okay. So at stage one, what doctor is saying that with this kind of reading, 150 over 100, it means that you should take your medical advices very seriously, or you should consult a medical advisor to know what to do and what not to do. And remember, you are live on the 30 Days Health Restore Challenge, and we are coming to you live from the studios of Bien Manger, Accra, Ghana. And this show is proudly sponsored by Salad Master and the Excel region as well. And we are having a discussion on hypertension, the medical point of view of hypertension with Dr. Torbi, who is joining us all the way from Breco. Now, What are some of the
Halali,
yes, doc?
before we move on to the next one,
Yes,
I'd like to add something to what the person asked earlier, the
very well,
150
very
thing.
well.
Uh-huh. The thing about hypertension is we do not rely on one reading to declare somebody as being hypertensive.
Okay,
The hypertension is a lifelong disease, so treatment is lifetime. So we do
mm,
not depend on one reading to define or classify somebody as being hypertensive. So that client with a BP of 150 over 100, for him or her to be classified as a hypertensive, it should record a BP of above 120/80 on at least two different occasions.
okay,
Okay, and even that, we usually calculate the average of those readings. So
okay.
maybe we can check the BP about three times on or three different occasions, and then we'll find the average. If it is above 120, 120/80, then the person is hypertensive. So one single reading is not enough to classify the person as hypertensive.
Thank you for that clarification, doc. Now, a lot of
Uh-huh.
people, or all of us, know that every illness or let's say lifestyle disease presents some form of symptoms before they actually are diagnosed as diseases and what's not. What are some of the symptoms, or are there any physical indications that could point out and say, okay, this could likely trigger hypertension?
Okay. Hypertension as a disease typically may not show symptoms. Now, if you are beginning to show symptoms, then you are approaching what we call end organ damage. The heart pumps blood to every part of the body. Okay. Now, if there are problems with any part of or any organ in the body, we call it end organ. If there's any damage to any of those organs, we call it end organ damage. So hypertension per se, if your blood pressure is just high, you may not show any symptom unless there is any damage to any of your organs, that you start showing symptoms. Now, unfortunately, these end organ damages can be very severe. So somebody may come to the hospital with stroke or with blurred vision or other visual disturbances, or maybe the heart is beating very fast, or they are breathless, or they cannot move any parts of their body. Those are some of the symptoms or signs of hypertension. Now, the thing is, you may not want to wait till you get to those stages before you approach a doctor, because this might be too dangerous. Okay. So typically, you may not show any symptom or any sign of hypertension. Most hypertensive cases are diagnosed routine accidentally or incidentally, if I may say. So maybe you got malaria, and then you presented to the doctor in the hospital, and then in the course of your examination, they check your blood pressure, and they realize that, oh, your blood pressure is high.
Mm.
But that may not be the primary reason why you are attending the hospital. So most people do not show symptoms. When symptoms start appearing, then it may be quite dangerous.
Wow. So what you are saying is this, that it could be possible that there are several people walking on the streets of Accra or anywhere else in the world and could have, um, hypertension triggered in their systems, but are not even aware that they are hypertensive. How dangerous can
Yeah.
that be?
Well, let me chip in some research findings from our colleagues in the USA. Now,
Okay.
they did a survey of their population, and they realized that up to 34% of the population of US are hypertensive.
Wow.
Okay. Now, between, yeah,
34% of the total population
34%,
living in the US.
yeah,
Wow.
hypertensive. Now, that is about 86 million Americans. Now,
Okay.
the
No,
research
no, no.
fed,
I know that whatever happens in the West will certainly translate into our society, but has there been any research done in our country, Ghana, to ascertain, the number of people living with hypertension, or quote and unquote that could probably be living with hypertension?
oh yeah, there's been a number of researches that have been done in our country to
Okay.
determine the prevalence or the number of people with hypertension in this country.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I do not have those figures with me. Now, there is something we call surveillance in surveillance of disease. So there's something called active surveillance and a passive surveillance. Okay. Now, if we say active surveillance, then we are going into the communities to pick people who have hypertension. Now,
Okay.
if you say passive surveillance, then we are just recording the data of those who come to us in the hospital. We are not actively going after them, but they report to us and then we check their BPs and then we will know that's okay. So maybe we can say that, okay, over the past 1 month, let's say 1,000 people visited the hospital, and out of that, this particular percentage is what uh, is those who have hypertension. Now, that figure may be high or low, but it may not reflect the value in the total population because we haven't done active surveillance. But I mean, these things were done. I just do not have their specific figures. But then again, the research globally has shown that 26% of the total population of the world is hypertensive.
That's alarming.
Yeah, and then it is expected that by 2025, that figure will increase to 29%, and that's quite serious. And
Wow.
then, we were talking about the symptoms and the signs earlier. Now, up to 78% of those who have hypertension are not aware.
Up to 79% of people that are living with hypertension are not aware
They are
they are
not aware.
hypertensive. So I
Yeah.
asked, how dangerous can this be to someone who is probably just going about their normal activities, just wake up in the morning, bath, and go to work? I mean, how dangerous can that be to such a fellow?
Yeah, hypertension is also known as the silent killer in the medical field. It's one of the diseases that we refer to as a silent killer. What it means is that uh, you are there, you are fine, you are okay, just living your normal life, and then before you realize something has happened, and then they take you to the hospital, maybe you go and check, and you realize that okay, your blood pressure is high, and that has given you
Wow.
a stroke, and that has led to your death. That is a silent killer. Now, I said earlier that about 78% of people with hypertension do not know that they
Mm.
have hypertension. Now imagine this huge figure, and most of these people do not show any symptoms. It is more dangerous than malaria in terms of the showing of symptoms or signs. Because I mean, if you start getting a headache or abdominal pain or vomiting or any of that stuff, then you seek medical attention and then realize, okay, it is malaria. But with hypertension, it may not be so. If you present with any of the signs of end organ damage, it means that your organs are already failing.
Mm.
Okay, and that is what is going to give you the signs and the symptoms that you may show. So I think that that's more dangerous than it's showing you symptoms that
I
would
think I
draw your
think I
attention
agree
to.
with you because you are not even fairly aware. You are in a vehicle, the vehicle is moving, and you don't even know that you have a puncture in your tire. And then you are speeding. All of a
Uh-huh.
sudden, there's going to be probably a somersault or something of that sort. That could lead to
Yeah.
death. Wow,
Uh-huh.
wow. This is now. If you are out there, I'll let Doc come in quickly on that because we want to take maybe a breather and then we'll come back to Doc. But if you have any questions and you've joined us, you could send those questions in and Doc will respond to all of them. We've been talking about the medical perspective, hypertension, and doctor has defined hypertension. We got to the point where doctor said that, Dr. Torbi said that up to, according to world research, up to about 25, Doc, is it correct? 25% of the world population has, um,
26.
26% of the world's population is living with hypertension. And out of the
Exactly.
25%, 78% of the people do not know that they have hypertension. This is serious. And if you are out there, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay, so there's a question. We'll take this question quickly before we go for the break. Doc,
Okay.
so I believe you can see the question on your screen. Has hypertension got anything to do with
Hypertension
kidney
got
malfunction or damage?
Yeah. So the relationship between hypertension and the kidneys goes both ways.
Mm.
Now, we another classification of hypertension is to classify it according to the cause. So then
Okay.
we'll have what we call primary hypertension and then secondary hypertension. If we say primary hypertension, we there is no single identifiable cause for what we call primary hypertension. So people who have primary hypertension, let's say people whose parents had hypertension, so there is a genetic predisposition for them to get hypertension. Most of these people fall into the category that we call primary hypertension. Now,
Okay.
there is a second class, which is secondary hypertension. Secondary hypertension just means that we can identify a specific cause for the rise in blood pressure. Now, out of that, kidney disease is the commonest cause of secondary hypertension. Now, as I said earlier, it goes both ways. So kidney disease can cause hypertension, but then hypertension itself can cause kidney damage.
Wow.
So the kidney has got a lot to do with hypertension actually.
Wow. Joining us from wherever you are, this is Bien Manje's 30-day health challenge coming to you live from the studios of Bien Manje, Accra, Ghana. And we have Dr. Torbi on the call, who has been helping us for the last, 25 minutes, digging deep into the medical perspective of hypertension. Doc, now before we went and we were
Yeah,
looking at the correlation between hypertension and then kidney
the
failure,
kidneys.
just like Ajat said. There is a follow-up question from the same person who came up earlier. He said, I have been diagnosed with left ventricular hypnotherapy. What do I do? I have tried controlling my diet, but to no avail. I was put on drugs to reduce my cholesterol, but now it's even higher than it used to be. What must I do? Wow. Doc.
Wow, interesting. Okay, as I said earlier, hypertension is a lifelong disease
Mm-hmm,
that we take great pains to diagnose hypertension. We want to
mm-hmm.
be absolutely sure that the
Yeah,
person has hypertension before we label the person as being a hypertensive.
yeah.
Now, the treatments of hypertension um, can go either way. Now, one of the factors that affects patients' response to treatment is their compliance to the medications that they are taking. Okay.
Okay,
Now, we have a number of classes of drugs we use for hypertension. They all act on different aspects of the things that cause hypertension. Let me put it that way. Now, if you were given a drug by a doctor and then the medication seems not to be working, you can always draw the attention of your doctor. That is the we don't have only one class of drug we use for hypertension treatment. So we try a number of drugs, and then the one that works well for the patient is what we'll stick to. Okay. So for the gentleman who complained that he's been diagnosed with left ventricular hypertrophy and then high cholesterol, the best thing is to uh, have a discussion with his doctor, whichever doctor is managing him or her, and then take they will arrive at a treatment plan which is best fit for the patient.
okay.
Treatment of hypertension is not only drugs, there are lifestyle modifications as well. So they'll, have a discussion and then realize which one is best for him, and then they will decide on that going
Right,
forward.
right. And I just want to quickly add that Mr. Ekisi Stanley, just like you saw in the testimonial video from Haji Azelia to Ali, she had, issues with hypertension as well. And she followed our 30 days health restore challenge and she had, her results. She was healed. So if you believe that you can discipline yourself, I know you said you've done some diet, regime before, but why don't you give it a shot again? Today is day 4. Actually, day 4. I said day 3 earlier. It's day 4 of the Health Restore Challenge. Um, so what you can do is that I'm going to announce a phone number probably at the end of the show today. You can place a call to that number and then they'll guide you on what to do for the challenge. You can also decide to start from day 4 for yourself. Yeah. Okay, so Doc, now we're
Yeah,
still on the relationship between hypertension and kidney failure and
and
so
the
on.
kidney.
But let me jump to this question now. It's funny, but someone sent it in. Does drinking a lot of water increase blood pressure?
Yeah, in a nutshell, yes, it does.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. How? because I believe that water, the body is made up of about 70% of mass of water, is it?
Yeah,
So
70% of the body mass is water.
of the body mass is water. So how come? How is it that water now taking too much of water? The person didn't even say too much. He said that's drinking a lot of water. Okay, a lot of water.
Lots of
But
water.
what at what point in a day would you say you have taken too much of water, or how many glasses of water would mean you have taken too much water
Okay.
before we even look at it leading to hypertension?
Okay. So the average adult is required to take at least 3 liters of water in a day.
Okay,
So between 3 to 3.5 liters. That is six pure water sachet.
that's the
So that's what we
500.
are required to, yeah, 500 ml. So we are required to take six of that in 24 hours.
Okay, so beyond
But
that, then it's excess.
I mean, what I should clarify here is that you require 3 liters of water in 24 hours. Now,
Okay.
this water is got, you can get some from food, you can get some from fruit juices, you can get some from basically any liquid drink. So you
Okay.
don't necessarily have to drink the six sachet of water to have drank enough water for the day, because
Doc,
you
I
can
would
still
want
get
you
some
to
of
take
this
that
water
point
from.
again because I know a lot of people who would want to say, because I'm required to take 3 liters of water, they make sure, regardless of whether they are taking fruit juices, whether they are taking smoothies, whether they are taking anything liquid, they'll still want to take the 3 liters of water. So I want you to take that point again and clarify for everyone to understand.
Okay. Okay. So what I am saying is that the body needs between 3 to 3.5 liters of water in a day. That is about 6 to 7 sachets of pure water.
Mm.
Okay. Now, this water, you don't necessarily have to drink all, because you get some of the water the body needs from the food you eat. You get some from the sobolo and the fruit juices that we take
Mm.
in a day. So, I mean, the body is a wonderful uh, organ, or the body is a wonderful thing. If you are thirsty, it's an indication that you do not have enough water. So then you drink water. Now, if you have drunk cocoa in the morning or you drank tea in the morning, you may not feel thirsty. There's water in the cocoa, there's water in the tea. So that may just be enough for you. So what it means is that in for simplicity's sake, for us to clarify and agree on a value, it is required that you take between 3 to 3.5 liters of water in a day. You can
Okay,
take 2 liters from that from pure water, and then the rest you get is from the food you eat. It is perfectly
absolutely.
fine.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
thank you so very much for that clarification. Now, we've said that there are no, what do you call it? Okay, so there is a question before we move to the next one. If we have hypertension,
Hold on a minute.
yes, doc, sure.
Somebody asked if drinking water can cause hypertension. Let's address that
Yes,
before
yes, yes,
we
sorry.
move on.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So the blood we have in our system is mostly water. We have
Okay,
the white blood cells, red blood cells, and platelets, and all that in it. Okay. Now, if you don't have enough water in the body, you lose water. The blood volume reduces. Okay. But then, if you have enough, so that's what we call dehydration. If you do not drink enough water and you become dehydrated, when we check your blood pressure, it can be low, very, very low. Some of the things that can cause dehydration is if somebody vomits excessively, or excessive water loss, maybe from sweating or other things like that. Okay. So people who vomit excessively, which is very common in children, they usually come to the hospital with their blood pressure very, very low. Okay. But then drink, so one of the things we do for them is to give them water to drink, or to give them fluids, what we commonly refer to as drip. It's just a form of water to try to increase the volume of the blood.
okay,
Okay. So, but I mean, if your blood pressure is normal and you are drinking a lot of water, it does not increase your blood pressure in any way. But
okay.
drinking water seeks to correct uh, low blood pressure. Let me put it that way, but not
So there are the pros
necessarily
and
increasing
cons
your
of
blood pressure.
doing
Uh-huh.
it that way, whether it's going to be in the adverse or it's actually going to help maintain your
Yeah.
blood levels. Okay, thank you, Doc. Now,
So for a
this
normal person, drinking water
yes,
doesn't cause blood pressure to go
doesn't
high.
cause blood pressure. Thank you so very much. So this was one of the questions that actually came up earlier, and it's come up again that if we have hypertensions, if we have hypertensions, apart from the drugs prescribed, what foods do doctors ask us to avoid or reduce consumption? So I was just going to come to that. What are some of the, you know, the preventive measures to take? We've looked at we know there are no known causes, but there are some triggers. So, what are some of the foods that we can avoid um, so we don't, or maybe reduce consumption?
Okay. So treatment of blood pressure, in treating hypertension, there are two broad approaches. The first one is what we call the non-pharmacological management or lifestyle modifications. Okay.
Okay,
And then we also have the pharmacological management where we give uh, the drugs, the antihypertensive drugs for people to drink or to take. Okay.
okay,
Now, in the early stages of hypertension, we try the lifestyle modifications to see how
okay,
it will work. Most of the time we combine the lifestyle modifications with the drugs that we give. Okay. Now, some of these lifestyle medications are the food we eat, then losing weight, to stop smoking, to exercise on a regular basis. So now, some of the foods that you can avoid, or some of the substances we take in that you can avoid to keep your blood pressure within the normal ranges are salt.
hmm,
So you should reduce the amount of salt that you take. Okay. You should take enough. You should also reduce the amount of alcohol that
okay,
you take in a day. Now,
okay,
we advise that for a man, you can take as much as 30 mils of alcohol in a day. If you say 30 mils, that's about 6 teaspoons.
teaspoons. Okay.
Teaspoons,
So, so
six.
all the
Uh-huh.
men out there who would say, I want an appetizer for my meal, and they go for hard liquor before they consume maybe mostly it will be lunch or maybe supper. Doc is saying that look, if you want to protect your health, then you should reduce the intake of the alcohol to about 60 spoons. That would be about maybe 3 tablespoons, if I would get it right. Three
Yeah,
tablespoons.
can be.
That is enough for the day.
Yeah.
Wow, doc. Then I believe
Actually,
people are doing a lot of harm to themselves. You know.
yeah, yeah, a lot of harm. I mean, there's a lot we can do if we modify our lifestyle to help in specifically reducing hypertension per
Okay.
se. So
So it's
the salt
obvious.
intake.
Yes, the salt, the alcohol. Now,
uh,
can we move away to someone who is living a very simple life and yet still has hypertension? The person doesn't smoke, the person doesn't drink, the person doesn't take a lot of salts and all of that. What will the person have to do then?
Okay. So one of the other lifestyle modifications is exercise.
Right.
Okay. Now, we also advise that we should exercise for at least 30 minutes of
Mm.
aerobic exercise. So when we say aerobic exercise, an exercise that causes you to sweat, you should do that for at least 30 minutes on most days of the week. We have 7 days in a week. So if you say on most days of the week, at least 4 days. Okay.
Four
So
days
if
in
you
a
can
week.
exercise for 30 minutes and sweat for 30 minutes, you can do that for at least 4 days in a week. It is fine. It's actually proven to reduce your blood pressure by up to 9 millimeters of mercury.
Wow. And that's a
So
good
yeah,
thing.
yeah, it's a very good thing.
Okay.
Even the
Now,
alcohol that we mentioned earlier,
mhm.
reduction in alcohol intake can also reduce your blood pressure as much as 4 points.
Okay. But look, before we come to the question that is being displayed on the screen right now, you talked about alcohol. Now we know that there are certain kinds of foods that contain alcohol as well. Would you advise someone to reduce the intake of those kind of foods as well, like say banku because we have the fermented corn and some other kinds of foods? Would you would you advise the person to reduce the intake of such?
I would advise that they reduce the intake of salt rather.
Okay.
Okay. Those, yeah, as I said earlier, we need you can take up to uh, you can take up to 30 mils of alcohol in a day, and that is fine. Now, you can get this from the banku that we eat. You can get this from the kinky that we eat. So you may not necessarily have to reduce your intake of these foods to in order to stay healthy, but you can reduce the intake of the salt in these foods.
Okay. Okay. Great.
I
So
hope
moving on.
you get
Yes,
that.
I get it clearly. Now moving on to the next question, which is on the screen. I find it difficult exercising, and I get tired very early and sometimes dizzy. Is the exercise a good way for me to reduce weight? So he gets tired very easily, and he finds it difficult to exercise because he gets dizzy.
Yeah. So that's a big dilemma. You have to exercise to lose weight, but then when you exercise, then you get tired and you cannot function properly. That's a huge dilemma. So then what do we do? You see, as I mentioned earlier, the lifestyle modifications, there are a number of things we do.
Mm.
One of them is you're losing weight, exercising, reducing your alcohol intake, reducing your salt intake, stopping smoking, and then eating foods that are rich in certain vitamins like calcium, magnesium, and also eating fruits and vegetables. Okay. Now, the exercise may not be good for everybody. For example, for somebody who gets tired easily when they exercise, then that may not be the best approach to losing weight,
Mm.
even though weight loss is important here. So then there are other things that the person can do. For example, you can reduce your intake of fats and oils. You can also reduce your intake of carbohydrates and a lot of salt. You can also speak to a dietitian to get you a meal plan that will help you to lose weight. Okay. And
I'm
then the
glad you.
exercise, I mean,
Yes, please go on. Please
brisk
go on.
walking is also one good way of exercising. You know, in Accra, a lot of people are busy during the day, and then in the night you come back tired, you want to sleep. But brisk walking is also one of the very good ways of exercising. So uh, you may not have to run 10 times around the park or run on the treadmill every time. Just brisk walking is also enough.
Okay. So before we go to the next question, I just want to say that on Sunday evening at 4 p.m. GMT, we'll be having our nutritionist, Dr. Sarah
Okay.
Daniel, be joining us all the way from um, Turkey, and she's going to be delving more into the nutritionist aspect of reversing and preventing hypertension. Doc today is handling the medical aspect. Doc, someone just sent this. I don't know if you can see it on your screen. So, Doc, what should be the
So, Doc,
percentage 30 ml of
uh,
alcohol? Now, someone is fighting so hard to still maintain their alcohol intake.
okay, so that 30 mil that I was talking about is
Mm.
specifically ethanol. Okay,
Okay.
now there are different classes of alcoholic beverages. You know, Apu is one of them. I mean, Appetition is one of
Mm.
them. We also
Mm.
have beer. We have, vodka. We have all those types of alcoholic beverages. They all have different strengths, if I may say.
Okay.
So, for example, vodka is higher in the percentage of ethanol
Mm.
than, let's say, beer.
Okay.
Okay,
So, Doc, what you
so
are saying is, before you go on, what you are saying is that before you even take the alcohol, you need to understand the content
yeah,
of the ingredients that make up that
yeah,
alcohol. But in our
yeah.
part of the world, it's quite difficult for people to actually do that, take their time to read the contents.
Uh-huh. So these things are quite technical. Now, so if you want to quantify the amount of alcohol a person should take in a day, in medical terms, we'll grade that in terms of units. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the unit of alcohol in beer is less than what you find in vodka,
Okay.
if I may say. Now, if you take a 5% wine, you compare that to 40% wine, you will need a smaller volume of the 40% wine to have gotten the volume of alcohol you need in a day than you would require in, let's say, beer. I don't know if you get what I'm saying.
Okay.
So the higher the percentage, the less the volume you will require to meet your target for the day. Okay,
Right.
so if you have a lower percentage alcoholic beverage, you may need to take more in terms of volume to reach your target than if you take a higher percentage one. But of course, as I said earlier, you get enough ethanol from the keke, the banku, and all those things that you eat. So you don't necessarily have to drink alcohol to make up for that. Besides, not taking alcohol at all is more beneficial than trying to meet a minimum requirement, if I may say.
I agree with you, Doc. I agree with you. There was no better way saying it than you have. And we'll take our final question from our viewers. And this same gentleman, I'm sure, is looking at, healing himself. Now, does eating late amount to hypertension? If I close from work late and I eat late frequently, would it lead to hypertension?
I have not found that to be causing hypertension, but
Okay.
we have associations or certain risks that can increase your chances of getting hypertension. For
Mm.
example, obesity is one of
Okay.
the risks for causing hypertension. If you eat late at night, we eat for energy. Okay. Now, the food that we take in, the body uses what it needs. The rest of the energy is stored in the body, okay, as sugar. Now, if the sugar stores are full, then you convert the remaining energy into fat.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you and I will agree with me that if you come home from work late and you take a lot of heavy foods, right after eating, you are going to sleep. So you would not need the energy much. So your body will just use the little that you need to keep breathing throughout the night for your heart to keep on beating throughout the night so that you do not die. The rest is stored as, glycogen, which is a form of carbohydrate. Now, if the glycogen stores are full, the rest is stored as fat. Okay. So then eating late at night will cause you to gain weight. And then that in turn makes you obese, and that also increases your chances of getting hypertension. So then
Oh.
it's not a direct link as you may have with taking diets that are rich in salt, but it's a direct link, if I may use that word. So it increases your chances of becoming overweight, which in turn increases your chances of becoming hypertensive.
So there you have it, Mr. Emmanuel Stanley, wherever you are joining us. But I think Doc has explained into details what could, yes, there is the possibility of you getting hypertension, but it's not a direct link. It would lead to obesity, which would make you gain weight and then could result in hypertension. Now, Doc, there is a myth that probably I wanted to, I think you've clarified it, but I may want to bring it up. It says
No
that wine
problem.
is good for the heart. So drink as much as you want. But in your delivery, you stated that there is a certain percentage of the alcohol, and because we are not able to measure, it would be, out of order for us to say, okay, yes, it's good for you to consume wine. That's my point of view, but I don't know about yours. So what would you have to say to that? This is a general myth that a lot of people live by, that every day they take red wine. And
Yeah,
some
a certain amount.
medical doctors, advise them. And you are a medical doctor, so I'm putting it to you now for you to clarify that for us. Though.
Yeah, a certain amount of red wine is good for the heart. That is the first point I would like to make. That a
Okay.
certain amount of wine is good for the heart. But as I said earlier, wine also contains some amount of alcohol. Now, for us to determine the amount of the wine that you require to take in a day for you not to be going into the range of excesses, we'd have to
Yeah.
know the percentage of the wine, and then we'll prescribe how much of that in terms of volume you should take in a day in order to be safe. But then again, abstinence is better than even trying to meet the minimum requirement, as I said earlier.
Okay. So,
So wine is not
abstinence is
totally
better.
harmful, but in moderation is fine.
Okay. Wine is not totally harmful, but it's best to abstain. And Doc also said on this show that food thrives in the body better than medication. Now, why would you want to subject yourself to something that is going to allow you to get sick in the future? It's best to prevent it. We have, I think, under 2 minutes to wrap up the show for today. And so we'll go for a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll take Doc's final words, and then we call it a day. All right, welcome back from that short commercial break from our sponsors, Salad Master.
Thank
Now,
you.
one thing you need to know is that eating from Salad Master is like taking your bath inside out. When you eat food prepared in Salad Master, it's like you are taking your bath inside out. And what we are doing on this 30-day health restore challenge is to help everyone cleanse the system. You are washing yourself from within. So whenever you eat the breakfast that we are preparing, or we guiding you to prepare from your homes or wherever you may be, the lunch, the supper, what you need to know is that the food consumed helps to cleanse your immune system. So, Doc, Stanley, our viewer, I don't know where he's joining us from, but he's expressing his, appreciation. He said, "Thanks for the responses. Highly grateful." And I'm sure he's going to be
Oh,
on our subsequent calls to learn more on how to reverse, this particular issue. So it's been established, that there is no really, really known cause for hypertension. But is there a cure for hypertension? That will be our final question. Is there a cure for hypertension?
so let me take it from the known cause or unknown cause for hypertension part. Then move on. So I was saying that there are two main classes of hypertension: the primary and then the secondary. The primary one is the commonest one, and that is
Yeah,
the one that we do not have a specific known cause.
specific cause. Right.
Uh-huh. But then the secondary hypertension, which is about 2 to 10% of the population, which accounts for about 2 to 10% of all cases of hypertension. That
In the
one
world.
we can identify a cause. Yeah. So of all causes of hypertension, about 2 to 10% of people with hypertension, we can identify a cause. And as I mentioned earlier, one of such causes is kidney disease. Okay. But up to 90% of hypertension, we cannot identify a specific cause for. And that is the most common one. Okay. And now, to your question, you said, is there any remedy for
Yes.
hypertension?
Is there a cure for
Uh,
hypertension?
Cure is a strong word, if I may put it that way.
In the medical perspective, is there a cure?
In the medical, so then in the medical perspective, we have cure, we have manage. Okay. Now, if we say somebody has malaria, malaria is quite common, so I like making a comparison between malaria and hypertension. If somebody has malaria, there's the cure for malaria. So the anti-malaria medication that we give
Mm.
will cure malaria. If somebody has hypertension, we will not say that we have a cure for hypertension. But what we say is that we have drugs that manage hypertension.
Mm.
So that in the medical world, that's the word we want to use. That management of hypertension and not a cure for hypertension. Now,
Okay.
as I said earlier, there are two main approaches. Usually, we combine both the non-pharmacological management and then the pharmacological management. So the non-pharmacological management, as I said, is the lifestyle modifications, the exercise, diet, alcohol intake, smoking, and all of that. Okay. And then when it comes to the medication part, we have a lot of drugs for managing hypertension.
I
They are
like I
divided
like the
into
way you put
various
it. We
classes.
have a lot of drugs.
Uh, they have a lot of drugs to manage hypertension. But the best drug for managing hypertension is prevention, because prevention is better than cure, as we all know.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
But in the
Okay.
event that somebody has hypertension, truly we have medications for it.
Okay. You have medications that can manage or medications that
Yes.
can cure.
No, we have medications that can manage.
Medications that can manage, right? So you heard it
Yeah.
all from Doc. It's been a wonderful session. I've learned a lot. My notepad is filled. There are a few adjustments that I believe we all would want to make from what Doc has said with regards to the lifestyle, adjustments that we need to make in focus on diets, alcohol, exercising, and all of that. And it's been an amazing session, Doc. I would want to say from the team here in Bien Manger, Accra, Ghana, I want to say a very big thank you to you. We want to say a very big thank you to our sponsors, Salad Master, and the visionary bearer, the vision bearer, Tony Bello, joining us all the way from the UK. I know he's watching with his family. Good evening to you out there. Good evening to Barrister Kojo Francis Atta. Yes. Our CEO here in Genmanje, Ghana. And to everyone that joined us from all over the world, we say we appreciate the time spent. It's been 55 minutes of straight talk on hypertension, the medical point of view on hypertension. And on Sunday at 4 p.m., we'll be having the same discussion with Dr. Serap Daniodis from the nutritionist perspective. What do they have to say? Is there a cure? What are some of the remedies they have provided in the years past that have yielded some results? And I believe that Doc will be joining us on that call as well, and you'll be making some contributions as well. So thank you all for joining once again. It's been a fruitful session, and I enjoyed it. I hope you did as well. And to all those that are participating in the 30-day Restore Challenge, don't give up. Discipline is what you need. Just discipline yourself and you will go through it. Let's finish hard. Let's finish hard. And I will see you on Sunday. Au revoir. Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Hi, Doc.
Hi.
Okay, so before I let you go, I know we've brought the show to an end, but what do you have to say to anyone that is probably living with hypertension and has tried everything and feels that, well, there is no way out for me? What do you have to say to that person?
Okay, what I would say is that in our part of the world, I have realized in my few years of practice that our patients do not ask questions enough. And then
Okay.
if they have concerns, they usually do not raise all the concerns with the doctors when they go to the hospital. Then they go back home, the problems persist. So, as I said, there are many classes of drugs for hypertension. Okay, if one is not working, we always change and then try and see if the new one is working or not. So, of all those who are living with hypertension, medicine has progressed to a certain level that doctors do not take decisions for patients alone. We have a discussion with the patients, and then we'll take a collective decision on what is best for the patient. Okay. So for all those who are living with hypertension, the next time they visit a doctor, they should ask all their questions, raise all their concerns, and then if they have any reservations for a particular drug, they can always raise it up with the doctor. And then we can always change or add on or subtract, and everybody will just be fine.
Okay. Thank you so very much, Doc, once again. And we'll take leave of you so you can go back to the world. I know that is also very important. But to anyone out there who wants to really, really understand what the 30-day health challenge is about, and especially to Mr. Stanley, who had a lot of questions for our doc today, please call 050 675 7820. 050 675 675 7820. 050 675 7820. And like I said before,
can I also call that number to ask a question?
Of course, Doc. You can. Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. So please do have a wonderful evening and take very good care of yourself. Over and out. Good night.
Good night, Alani. Thank you.